You see, this type of thinking, you may begin to kind of think in your mind, I've heard this before, but this is really something. This is crazy stuff, right? But this kind of thinking even permeates the church, especially the church in America. I mean, let me give you an example. If we would all just band together, we can bring peace on earth. But the only one who ever will, the only one who ever can, is Jesus Christ when He returns. Look, a well-known body of churches, a large church organization which will remain nameless, has this information in its statement. By promoting dialogue between Christians and partners of other religious traditions, it encourages them to seek convergence. Convergence. So by convergence, do you mean a one-world ecumenical religious system? I know who brings that in. His name is Antichrist. He will dominate the earth with his religious system. The time is short, church. The world is quickly moving toward the time of tribulation. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this stuff out. Just look at what's going on in our modern world today. Ecumenical unity says we can do it. Biblical unity says only God can do it. And during the tribulation, the world will follow the Antichrist, and human beings will affirm their own spirituality or their own superiority or themselves as a God. They will not follow Christ in dependence and humility. It is the exact opposite of what will be going on during the time of the tribulation. So you may be saying to yourself, Pastor, how can you make these outrageous claims? Well, just look at the world's reaction to the judgments of God during the time of the tribulation. Revelation 16:9 tells us during some of the most hideous judgments of God that the people of the earth did this. And they cursed the name of God, who had control over these plagues, but they refused to repent and glorify Him. Why? Because they've been dominated by a religious system, wherefore the Antichrist has made himself as the God, their Messiah, and declared them as gods. And if they're gods, they don't need God. They've already got their Messiah, and they've already got themselves. They don't need Him. The people of the earth refuse or reject God, even though they know these judgments are from God, because they believe that they are gods and that the Antichrist is their God. That is why they have this reaction. So how does the Antichrist have such power over people of the earth during the time of tribulation? He has it through the great prostitute. Through establishing a worldwide religious system. Look, the cult of self over God, or that you can become a god, is as old as ancient Babylon. It's been around for millennia. Babylon is this interesting cult. It's this interesting city that was built on the plain of Shinar. It was the place where the people built the tower, or started to build the Tower of Babel in Genesis chapter 11. The Tower of Babel, by the way, is a tower to astrology. In other words, it's a tower to fortune-telling through the stars. What it was is mankind's attempt to become gods, or to know and control their own destiny before it occurred, so that they could live any way they wanted to live. Babel literally means gateway to a god. So what were they building? They were building a tower unto themselves because they believed that they were gods, so that they could control their own destiny and live any way they wanted to live. And Babel, by the way, is the place where God confounded their languages. They had one language before. And Babel is the root of the city called Babylon. Babylon represents Christ rejecting humanity's desire to be its own God. Look, in our text, the great prostitute is called Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes and of the abominations of the earth. That's her title. Ancient Babylon was the center of this fascinating worship. It was the mother and son cult of Tammuz, or the Queen of Heaven. According to the cult, Tammuz bore a son who was called the Messiah, who was miraculously conceived, and the mother and son cult were worshipped in Babylon. Sound familiar? One of its main holidays was Ishtar, and Ishtar was a holiday to the Queen of Heaven, or Tammuz, who miraculously conceived what they called to be their Messiah. Sound familiar? Her symbols were rabbits and eggs, or fertility symbols. On her main holiday, people fasted for 40 days, and at the end presented themselves cakes. Sound familiar? It's a derivative of our holiday we call today Easter. Yeah. Gnostics also have their root in ancient Babylon. I don't know if you've heard of Gnostics before, but they worship a god they call Sophia, or the feminine mother of creation. That this is the Mother Earth, sound familiar? She is the beginning of divine or special wisdom, and Gnostic means, it comes from the root word, Greek word gnosis, which means to know or to have special knowledge. Gnostics believed in transcendental consciousness, or higher knowledge, and through that higher knowledge comes salvation. So they believe that divine or higher knowledge places a person on a higher path, therefore sets them free from the bonds of this world. Sound familiar? Like spiritual mediums today, who claim to have connections or higher knowledge or higher understanding. I was watching the Today Show just this week on Tuesday morning. And on the Today Show, there were people from Lilydale. You know about Lilydale, it's not far from here. And a woman on that show said, "No one dies at Lilydale." Okay. Why does she make such an outrageous claim? She makes the outrageous claim because at Lilydale, they say that they can connect with the dead through higher knowledge, understanding, or mediums. Look, church, Satan will dominate the world during the time of tribulation by two means. One is a religious system, two is an economic system. And Satan's religious system will declare Antichrist to be God of a worldwide religious system, that mankind is a god in that system, that mankind can become godlike through higher knowledge, and that the Antichrist is their God to be worshipped as God. Don't think we're traveling in that direction quickly. Think again. Church, we are not far away at all from Jesus coming in the clouds and removing the church. All of these things that the Antichrist does, his worldwide religious and economic system, are already perfectly able to be put in place. This is not a stretch of the imagination at all. So how do the people of the earth commit adultery with her? Question number 2. How do the people of the earth commit adultery with her? They commit adultery with her spiritually. Let me explain. Spiritual adultery is taking the exclusive place of love that Jesus is supposed to have in our being and replacing it with something else. It is the same thing in marriage. It is taking the exclusive love that we promise to give to our spouse and giving it to someone else. Spiritually, it is the exact same thing. So what does the world do? They commit adultery with her spiritually by taking the exclusive love that we're supposed to have for Jesus and giving it to the Antichrist and themselves. During the tribulation, the Antichrist will be God. So where does God spell out this exclusive love relationship with us? Thank you for asking. You'll find it in the Ten Commandments.